Hello and welcome to Diary of an Unschooler, the space where we explore the world of deschooling, unschooling, and natural learning. I'm your host, Leah McDermott, and I'm here to guide you through the fascinating journey of alternative education and meaningful learning experiences with your children. Thank you to all of our listeners for joining us once again, or if you're new here, a warm welcome to you. Let's dive into today's topic. Today, we're going to talk about a pretty big myth that I see often in the unschooling world, which is, can I be an unschooler and use a curriculum? Are those things that can happen at the same time? And this question is coming up a lot right now within the Academy community that I run and operate. We have a lot of new families joining this year who might be new to the idea of unschooling. And since we encourage that unschooling mindset at Bridge Academy and also offer a curriculum and resources for learning, we have this question come up a lot, right? Can I do both of those things? Can I use a curriculum with my child and still be an unschooler? By the way, if you're not aware of Bridge Academy, definitely go check that out. Check the show notes, visit bridgeacademy.us. All of my social accounts are going to talk about that. It's my private K-12 school, revolutionary way of learning and living with your children. Go check that out. Okay, let's dive into this though. This is a really big myth that I see very often, especially as I browse parent groups and unschooling groups that I'm a part of on social media. And what I see very often is what I like to call unschooling purists, who personally, I believe that people who will advocate and tell you that if you are unschooling and using something that looks like a school resource, you are doing it wrong. You're not a true unschooler. I believe that those people are still very stuck in their own educational trauma and deep in those wounds of, what learning looks like and still coming out of that. So I just encourage you to be very careful of where you get your information and who's telling you things. If it's feeling kind of off to you, there's probably a reason. And this myth kind of centers around the idea that unschooling means a rejection of everything that is happening in a public school. And this is a big mistake because, yes, the term unschooling is indicative of rejecting some of those beliefs from a traditional school system, be that public school, private schools, or even a very rigid homeschooling experience set up to look like school. But the mistake is in what we are rejecting with unschooling. So I want to break this down a little bit to hopefully help you understand maybe a clearer definition of what unschooling is, and then help you understand why it's okay to identify as an unschooler or someone that is on an unschooling path with an unschooling mindset, and yet still chooses to utilize resources like curriculum that helps your child learn. So what an unschooler does not do, and by the way, I speak of this from the perspective of being a unschooling parent. We are unschoolers with my children. I am also a school owner. I am the head of Bridge Academy, helping 2,000 plus students all around the world. And I author curriculum. I have written child-led curriculum, which is the Your Natural Learner curriculum. So I, have my hands in all of these areas. So that I want to preface with that. Okay. We are not, as unschoolers, rejecting resources. That's not what we're rejecting. We are rejecting three things specifically from that schooled mindset. Okay. That's what we're rejecting, is the schooled mindset. The first thing in a schooled mindset is that learning only happens one way, that it looks like one thing. It only can happen with a teacher at the helm. It only can happen with rigid lesson plans. It only can happen within the four walls of a school building. It only happens between the hours of 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. It only happens in the school year. And with that mindset is this inherent subconscious belief that a parent cannot be a teacher. Learning cannot happen at home or outside or on a vacation or in our bedrooms or on a computer, that learning can't happen at night, that learning can't happen in the summer. It's this subconscious belief when we adhere to a routine and a schedule that was designed by a system or a society to keep us in check, that anything outside of that is still considered valid. So that's one thing that we are rejecting as unschoolers, that learning happens one way and only looks that one way. The second thing that we reject as unschoolers from that schooled mindset is that learning happens in a predictable timeline, happens the same for every child, and that there are these required check marks and check boxes that we have to check off through childhood in order for that child to be considered schooled / educated / successful. Unschooling rejects that because, as we know, no two children are the same. No two humans are the same. I have, in my experience, worked with several identical twins who have very, very different beliefs about interests and passions and skills and talents, and how they learn is so different. No two humans are the same, and we cannot expect to educate or expect them to learn on a predictable timeline when we know for a fact that every human is different, every human has different talents and skills, and every human has a different natural timeline of when they will be ready to learn things and how they will learn those things. That is one of the biggest things that we reject as unschoolers in that rejection of the school mindset, which is that learning is a predictable thing and that every human is going to learn exactly the same way. It's that rejection of the one size fits all model that obviously happens in a public school system when we have, many, many, many children that we're trying to push through this funnel and have them all come out exactly the same on the other side. And that's not the world that we want anyway. And then the third and personally, the most important thing that we are rejecting as unschoolers from that schooled mindset is that learning needs to be forced and proven. Obviously, within the confines of that traditional school mindset, traditional school belief is that if we do not force a child to learn something, they will never seek that out. They will not have the skills to do that. And that we have to force them to prove to us that they are learning. This belief is not something that is beneficial to a child. It is something that is only beneficial to the system that is putting that onto a child, that we have to force it and that we have to force it to be proven back to us. Okay, so those are the three things that we reject as unschoolers from that schooled mindset, that learning happens one way, looks one way, and only exists one way, that learning happens on a predictable timeline and that every child is exactly the same, and also that learning should be forced and proven. The beliefs then that we adhere to as unschoolers in the rejection of those three beliefs are that, number one, learning happens everywhere. One of our mottos at Bridge Academy is all life is learning. My children learn just as much when they are relaxing on the couch in the evening after dinner, watching something on YouTube. There is just as much learning happening then as when we are traveling to a new location and they are experiencing a new language, just as much as if I were to sit down with them and force them, and actually even more than if I were to sit down and force them to complete something out of a workbook that's meaningless to them, right? So we believe learning happens everywhere, all of the time. All of life offers an opportunity for us to learn something. Along with that, we believe that there are many ways to learn and that every person is unique. And of course, if you have spent any time with any child, you know that each human is very unique and has their own unique things that they bring to this world. And the unschooling mindset is one that embraces that individuality and that uniqueness. And that's what we want to cultivate and celebrate and encourage, instead of trying to force them into this funnel, as we said earlier, about that learning on a predictable timeline and only happening and looking one way. And finally, we believe that autonomy is the key to meaningful learning. When we give a child or any human the choice and the freedom to decide what they want to learn, when they want to learn it, how they're going to learn it, and most importantly, how and if they are going to share that information and knowledge with other people around them, that is when learning is most meaningful. So when we look at that difference in the schooled mindset and the unschooling mindset, we see that there is a place there for resources to fit as options to us. And that is how we view resources. That is how we view curriculum or online classes or even textbooks and workbooks. Those are all resources. There are not beliefs associated with or attached to these resources. They are purely that. They are all tools. And it is what we bring to those tools and what we bring to the table with our child that affects the way those resources will be taken. So when we say we are an unschooling family, that does not indicate what resources we may or may not use with our children. And that is going to be different within every family, for every child. How does your child learn best? Maybe there are some children who really thrive and enjoy working through a textbook and highlighting things and writing out answers. If that is a valuable resource to that child and they are still falling under that belief system of the unschooling mindset where learning can happen anywhere, there's multiple ways to learn something and there's no wrong way to do that. Every human is unique, and that they have the autonomy to choose that resource and not have to do it in a way that is to satisfy somebody else, but purely because it is meaningful to them, then that resource becomes a valuable learning tool. It might not work for every child. It might not be the first choice of that parent, but that is how we have to adjust our beliefs here and our mindsets about unschooling. It is not what resources we are choosing to use. It is how we look at the utilization of resources to affect the learning that is happening for our children. So I hope that's helpful to you as you start this new school year, or whenever you're listening to this, as you continue your journey of deschooling and unschooling. Just remember that what we are framing here with that unschooling mindset is not a rejection of resources. It is a rejection of beliefs that put your child in a box and believe that learning happens only one way, taking away their autonomy and their choice to engage how they want, when they want, to learn what they want, when they want, and how they're going to share it. All right. I hope that was helpful to you. Continue on your unschooling journey. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Diary of an Unschooler. I hope today's discussion provided valuable insights for you into the world of unschooling. Remember to subscribe and leave us a review if you found this episode helpful. I record multiple episodes on a variety of topics every week, so make sure to come back soon to dive into more about unschooling and natural learning. A big thank you to our team for making this episode possible. I'm Leah McDermott, reminding you to embrace the journey of learning naturally with your children. Until next time, take care, and remember, all life is learning.